There. So I have kind of put off doing this video for a while. I think it's necessary though. So I want to start out the gate. If you're for Aiden Kearney, this is about his charges, all of them, in one nutshell of conversation. If you're for him, I'm not against him. If you're against him, okay, this is not a video about being against him or for him. This is specifically talking about whether or not he violated the statutes based on evidence that's available to the public. This is about lawyers and the things that they're saying about his case. And also, this is about comparing his case to Karen Reed's. I'm taking offense to that, and I'll explain why. And please don't get angry. I'm very thankful for people like him who just say, not no, but heck no, when there's just outright corruption. And I wish more journalists, I'm like on two sides of the ball here, because I'm so disgusted with mainstream media, right? And I'm disgusted with, as I've recently expressed, with channels who dare sit there on their convenient seat and try to lie about mainstream media, acting like they haven't just completely violated journalist ethics and just totally deception by omission, hiding corruption cases in the state of Massachusetts that were going on literally while Karen Reed's case was going on. So I went into all that. But on the other side of the coin, we have journalists who are just more like, he's two persons. He's an activist and he's a journalist. But you have to be careful about mixing both, right? So I'm going to go into a lot of the cases he had recently. Now, he was acquitted of the one where there was a lady who was accusing him of something. And to me, unless they had a video of him doing what she alleged, that's a he say, she say case that should have never seen the law of light. And that was an easy one to be acquitted on, right? Anyways, that there was issues with her credibility. And it didn't sound like there was any evidence at all that he did what she accused, right? So this is like a mixture. Like, there's some things that it's just they have no business charging him, right? And then, Alan Jackson was recently on, I think, his live stream, and I had to leave because I can't listen to people taking the Lord's name in vain. I can respect them as their skills. I'm an attorney, but I'm not going to sit there and let somebody take the Lord's name in vain. So I didn't hear all the things he said, but I tried to listen to him. But, one thing that Alan Jackson said about the charges against him, that they were basically blankety blank. They were BS. And why? Why were those charges? It doesn't mean that he didn't actually violate the statute as it's written. It just means, how dare they? To me, that's how I see the charges. How dare they? How dare they charge him when they are themselves committing murder? Since I have seen this video of Abby from the Video Jesus channel, I'm just to the point of I'm outraged, right? And if I was somebody that had a bad temper or just it's just horrible. How dare they? They have terrorized people in their community. There's people who have commented on my videos that they're afraid to leave their home because that's how bad the corruption is. They're going around murdering people and then not only covering it up, tampering with evidence, and then just lying to the world. And I absolutely believe Abby's analysis is on the up and up, and they should be in jail. They should be in prison. They shouldn't be going around charging this guy, even though when it comes down to it, what I'm getting into is I think he did violate some of the statutes. Now, here's the thing about the intimidation or trying to influence a witness. That's for a jury to decide, okay? And they're going to have to show that his whole reason of, doing the things he did and the way he did it was for the sole purpose to influence a witness or to intimidate a witness. They're going to have to prove that, and the jury's going to have to make that decision. However, I think one of the more clear-cut things that he's going to have a little bit more problem with is recording. And this is where I'm just like, if there's any attorneys out there who are, even by omission, like, if I was an attorney, which I'm not, I did go to law school, but I was never meant to be an attorney. I do, volunteer work, legal research and stuff though. But I would say, listen, I don't know, and I'm not going to act as a jury on whether or not he actually meets the elements of that charge to be guilty of it. But when it comes to recording, you cannot record anybody. You cannot without their consent. They have to literally, in the state of Massachusetts, say that they consent. They agree, right? However, I have recently found, actually it was like last year. I do a lot of research, and there was a federal case that came down. I believe it was 2021, and I categorized it. But however, if somebody knows they're being recorded and they continue to talk to you, right, that can be coined as implied consent, or basically waiving your right to consent. That particular case kind of struck down some of these elements in a statute, and but here's the thing. You may be somebody that's like, well, that law is stupid and I don't agree with it, and there's a lot of laws on the books that are absolutely in violation of the Constitution of the United States of America. But here's the thing about that. Just because it's in violation of a statute doesn't mean you can violate that law because it is in fact in violation of statute. You have to get an attorney and go to federal court, get with the Attorney General first, serve him, whatever. You can challenge the constitutionality of a statute in federal court. But just because it's something that might be unconstitutional, the way it's written, doesn't mean you can just completely violate that law. So it says, this is what he said. He says he believes he's going to be victorious, and because it's First Amendment rights. No. So here's the thing about First Amendment. If I want to go over there and cuss that person and call them all kind of names I want, well, I can do that because it's my free speech. Yeah. No. That's not how the law works. There's literally statutes that protect people from verbal abuse. That is, like, if you're sitting there calling somebody names, you're disparaging them, and they've told you they don't want to talk to you, you can get slapped with a stalking charge. Yeah. Because you're abusing them and continuing to contact them, and all these states have those statutes, right? It's not, freedom of speech has its limits, guys. I'm just saying. Right? It's just like saying you can go around threatening somebody to kill them. I'm not saying he did. I'm just using that as an example. So when it comes to journalism, and I'm going to show you the actual verbiage here. So this is particularly why they put the journal ethics in the case, and why the judge, because they were trying, some of the mainstream media was like, to me, it was like being disparaging to him. They're like he's not really a journalist, he's just a blogger. This judge in this particular county classified him, recognized him as a journalist in a ruling. And so that's good, because at least they're recognizing, he's a journalist. But it's bad for him because they're going to use the ethics and the standard of journalism. So, like, for example, right after the hung jury in the Karen Reed trial, the first trial, in case you're new to it, there was a first trial, it was hung jury, and the second trial. Right after that first trial, a state trooper called Michael Proctor, who was just, he ended up getting fired, right? I think it was CBS, I'm not sure. It was, so one of those local media chapters go out there to his address. Now, this is the same thing that he was doing. He's going out to an address of people who were on a witness list. But what he was doing was a little bit different. He was taking people with him. Like, literally organizing rolling rallies to go from house to house to different witnesses and just say all kinds of things. But what I'm saying is, they went to his address, and even though it was a hung jury, he's still on the witness list because it's still an active case, because they've already announced that they're going to try her as many times as it takes, right? And so when they went to his address, they didn't approach him saying, you're guilty, you're blah blah blah. They approached them with questions. That's how journalists approach somebody, not with accusations or insults or cussing them or calling them names, with questions. That's the standard of journalism. And so in a civil case, if somebody's being sued and they're a journalist, they're going to use what's the standard for journalism based on, there's literally ethics for journalists. they're going to be found liable based on, did they go out this realm, and da da da. And it's the same thing in criminal court. And this is why they classified him as a journalist, but then said he violated, in this case, that he violated by saying that the way that he did the things he did, they're saying, well, the statute is, now this is why I think these original charges, now keep in mind there's different levels of charges. So there's original charges, and then there's more recent charges. Some of the charges he's already got dismissed, and one I think he went to trial and he was acquitted. But then the most recent charges are even worse, because he signed an agreement in the court. He was ordered by a judge specifically to not communicate with these people in any way, to stay away from them, and he can't even be in the courtroom when they're testifying. That makes it, that takes out any argument that he could even try to use, because in this argument it was like, well, it's vague, it doesn't really put the person on notice, and that to me is a valid argument, right? And that's going to be up to the juror to weigh that argument against the state, right? But then the most recent charges was something about he was yelling or making comments he went to his place of business and said something, intimidating one of the witnesses by speaking into a surveillance camera at their pizza shop. Now, obviously, it's going to be on camera because he's speaking into a camera. That's going to be worse because he agreed not to contact them, and then he's put on notice. So that's going to be harder for him. I think maybe some of them he'll be acquitted of, but I hope and pray for his sake that they offer him a plea deal and with probation. I don't even know if probation is allowed at these kind of felonies, but it's just so bad because, these people are making people angry. They're making people afraid. No, I'm talking about the state is making people afraid, guys. They're making people afraid. They're making people feel terrorized. They're literally, you've got people saying that they feel terrorized in their own, like multiple people are saying this. And I've had people comment on my videos that they've lived there for a long time and they don't like going anywhere. That's how bad it is. These people who have killed a cop, and that's my opinion, okay? I'm not going to name names, but it's a cover-up, and I do believe there is a conspiracy to cover it up. I do not believe a paramedic said that he heard him say, I hit him, because if she had said, I hit him, by golly gee, she'd have been arrested on the spot. And I've said that before. That's just ridiculous for them to even say those things. And obviously the jurors didn't buy that. But here's the thing that you got to keep in mind that the jurors are going to see. You remember the video where he is not, I don't even know if he was a part of it, but I know there's a bunch of people on the steps. And I feel like the family could sue the local people, the local police, for allowing these people to do to stand up on the steps and to do these things. To me, that's aiding and abetting. To me, when the cops are allowing him or others with him to do these things, they're giving him permission. That's my position. If there should be any argument to the jury, is like, the cops didn't stop him, they let him do it. So how is it, you know what I'm saying? That would be like, but then when you have the thing about where they're on the steps and they're booing the brother, the mother, the father, that's not okay. You remember back in the 80s when the DNA evidence first came about, where they literally had, I think 100 people were cleared from death row and they were completely innocent. You think that those family members didn't buy the state? And a lot of those cases were egregiously corrupt. Corruption's not new. This is not new. That's why we need federal legislation, and I'm going to keep advocating for it. It's all how stuff is written to be a true deterrent to corruption within the criminal justice system, guys. It's just that simple. But at any rate, there's all those 100 people, the first 100 people, I should say, that were exonerated by DNA, who were 100% innocent. And there were some cover-up things in some of the cases over the histories that have been done to people, right? And those family members were absolutely convinced. They just believed the state. Are they bad people? No, they're not. And I know that people are like, well, keep in mind, before the defense even presented its experts in the first trial, they were out there booing those people. That's not okay. And the jury is going to see that, and they're going to be horrified. And the things that's going to be said to the jurors are not going to be the same things that we hear, because it's going to be so controlled, and it's going to be so sterilized on what the jury is actually going to be allowed to hear. They're not going to be hearing what we're hearing when we hear about this case. They're not going to be hearing things like, "Oh, how dare they? They're crooks, they're criminals, they're murderers. How can they charge this guy when they themselves do all these crimes?" They're not going to hear that. They're not going to hear that. Right? They're going to see the video of him railing, and they're going to read the statute, and it's going to say, "You cannot go by anybody who's on a witness list house." And then he says to one of them, allegedly, of course everything he does is on video, that, "Why don't you just tell the truth? Why don't you just tell the truth? Why don't you just tell the truth?" And that's presented in this particular, in the wordage, and that they could use and say that they was trying to change it, trying to get him to change his testimony, right? But again, that's up to a jury. But he was not acting like a journalist, because journalists don't talk like that. Journalist ethics don't allow that. You can't call people, cuss them, and call them names. Everything, when you look at the way journalists, and I've seen journalists in some states, media dox people. Remember the Casey Anthony case? She was convicted before her trial. They were all out there in front of her house just waiting. I mean, they stalked them, they followed them, but every state is different. But even when journalists are just absolutely convinced, you can tell they believe that the person's guilty, right? They still have to present, when they approach them. Who was that? What was the guy that convicted for killing his wife? Peterson. Okay. When they approached him, even him, who killed a woman that was pregnant, 8 months pregnant, they still approached him with a question format. And that's how you have to do it. I mean, it can be hostile sounding, but they still approach him. "Did you do this? Did you do this? Why are you this? Why are you this?" It's always question form. That's journalism. The way he does it, he's just off the hook. The way he talks, he's just like, "You're guilty, you're guilty, guilty. Do you regret it? You can't even go out with your scumbag husband." I mean, just on and on and on and on and on. And they're going to play everything he said on video. Then they're going to have him on his live stream video. All these videos are going to be played to the juror of him calling people up repeatedly. Not only calling them up, he's recording them, and he's broadcasting it to the world. I just really think it's going to be really hard for him to fight that recording law. The recording law is very stringent in Massachusetts, so people don't get mad. I'm not saying that, I just wish that he hadn't done it the way that he did it. I mean, you can be aggressive and really, I was so thankful to see that many people out there, but I never heard about the case from him. There's millions of people that never heard about the case from him, right? And I think it's annoying when Hank Brennan talks about how he influenced the jury. And I think they may even try to present that he's trying to say, which is stupid, because if you don't think you have an untainted jury, it's up to you to take it to another county, right? And he didn't. And he picked the jury, right? But it's just ridiculous that he says that kind of thing. And not only that, but this time, the second trial, they were very quiet. Like, they weren't in it. They were so outraged. Not at just what the defense proved that she was innocent, but some of the things that even the state did that was just offensive. You got a officer saying she had false memories, and then you got Proctor. I mean, there's just so many things that they did that was just egregious, that they just really didn't have much credibility with the juror. They were just annoyed, and not only annoyed, but to the point where the jury foreman goes out publicly to the media and asks the FBI to reopen the investigation, and upset because they didn't. Any one of us, they would have went into that house. And he's right. He's absolutely right. Nail on the head right there. Right? So because, though, that they're so corrupt, it doesn't mean he didn't violate the statute as it's written. It's like their crookedness, it's like, man, don't give the enemy fodder to use against you. When you are going up against corruption, you better cross your T's and you better dot your I's, and you better have a shield around you, okay, when you're doing that. Because if you misstep in any way whatsoever, they're gonna get you, right? And he just fed them fodder by calling people up on this, because he doesn't believe that the laws are constitutional. And I know a lot of people probably agree with him on that, but there's steps you need to take. If you think any law is unconstitutional in your state, get it in court, challenge it in federal court, and change it that way, right? There's a lot of laws that were changed that just don't add up to the Constitution, But I just don't like him being compared to Karen Read for this following reason. Karen Read was 100% innocent of any wrongdoing whatsoever in the murder of her boyfriend. Karen Read is a victim of her boyfriend being murdered. Karen Read is a victim of corruption, of suborning perjury. Karen Read is a victim of malicious prosecution. Karen Read is a victim of defamation. Karen Read is a victim of slander. Karen Read is a victim of sexual harassment, discrimination against her as a woman and having a medical condition by what Proctor did and his friends and the people that worked in the state trooper department. Karen Read is a victim of losing her job. Karen Read is a victim of losing her home. Karen Read is a victim who never did anything wrong in any way whatsoever that led to the death of John O'Keefe. She's a victim. And she's not even being recognized as a victim by the media, the mainstream media, who continue to interview these people despite the evidence that has come out, to include Abby on Video Jesus channel, who found the tampered evidence and where they hid the edits. They still will not. They still continue to use deception by omissions, and when they allow them to use the words like conspiracy theorists, and then they hide the corruption scandal, the corruption prosecution of several state troopers and cops involved also, and their family and friends. That is deceptive reporting. It violates journalist ethics, and anybody who says that's not true, I would just stay away from that person. Like, it's your choice if you want to hang out with creepy people like that who just lie and act like the mainstream media didn't do anything wrong there. That's your choice, right? But this is not okay. He did violate the law. I saw it with my own eyes when he's calling people. That was like one live stream that I watched, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, wow. I did try to watch his most recent one, but I just don't like anything where they take the Lord's name in vain. I can't hear that, right? So here's the thing, though. The recording law is so clear. It's not a matter of there's multiple elements of a statute that has to be met. Like in this one, they have to prove that he intended to influence their position and their testimony. They have to prove he did it to intimidate them. That's all something that's going to be up to a jury, right? And but the recording law, no, it's pretty straightforward. You cannot record somebody without their consent, period. End of story. So I just think that he can't go online and say, okay, well, I kind of violate this law, but they're kind of jerks for prosecuting me when they're murderers and, evidence tamper and corrupt and, whatever. Their crimes are so much worse than his, right? But, because if he did admit to any wrongdoing, they're going to use it against him. But to sit there and act like he did nothing wrong, I mean, he just should not talk about it at all if he can't. It's not right. Karen Read, the reason they put the OI, the drinking, operating a vehicle under influence, which is what she ended up, she offered that up. She's like, you know what, if you want to find me guilty of something, okay, I probably did, drive over the limit. Though she wasn't drunk, like, but there's probably a lot of people driving around. But for the record, her boyfriend was a cop, and he had a higher standard of whatever, and he was the one had her driving. And all those other cops at that bar, they saw how much she drank. And we all kind of saw what they was drinking too. They probably all was over the '08 limit, you think? So, but it doesn't, but still she offered it up. And she's like, okay, I'll take this. But he, on the other hand, is just like, no, ain't do nothing wrong. Ain't do nothing wrong. And they no law, and if I no law, then I no law. Dude, you're on your live stream and you're recording people. And literally Massachusetts law says you can't do that. Just like, it just, he's not a comparison to Karen Reed. I hope he doesn't, I'm not wanting him to go to jail. I'm just like, I'm so upset for what this county has done. And I am thankful for him because, he did, all those people out there, the world needs to see more of that, right? But you have to be careful when you're standing up against corruption. Be angry, but sin not. What the Bible says. And don't violate. Don't give them fodder. Don't feed them fodder when you're standing up against corruption. I just hope that they offer him a deal. I really do. I hope and pray that they get these people that's operating now out of there. They've got to get these people out. They're just so bad. They're so bad. Anyways, I just wanted to share that because I see a lot of people with this free Turtleboy, and it's just like, well, don't compare him to Kearney because it's not the same. He was in defense of her, but the things that he did violated law, as it is written. I think at least a couple of the charges, he's really going to have a hard time. Because he had an argument that, the law as it's written, it doesn't really give you good notice. But when you are issued an order and you agreed not to contact people and you go up to their security camera and you say things into it, after that, you kind of lost that part of the argument. That's if it's true, what they're saying, of course. But the recording law, guys, it's not a comparison. I think it's okay to be happy that he was bringing awareness. Don't be mad at me because I'm just telling you how it is. I'm just discussing what's what. I'm not against him. I'm praying for him. I'm praying for mercy for him. I really am. And I'm praying that they get these people out of power in the name of Jesus in that county. Y'all keep praying for that. By the way, the petition, I had a lot of emails, and then I had petition that I had people sign. I think it's like 350 on the petition side, then I have a whole bunch in my email. So I have to print all of these up, and there's going to be pages and pages and pages that I have to print up. So I've been working on it, and I was going to do it this afternoon, but I didn't get anything done in time. So I'm going to have it all ready. I'm working on it this weekend, and so come Monday morning, and I'm going to do a video of me actually mailing off these petitions. And there's going to be, oh my gosh, I saw mailing to 3 different addresses. This will probably cost me over $100 because I'm doing it certified return receipt. So for 3 addresses with that many pages, it's going to be like a package. And, mail stuff's expensive. But anyways, yeah, it's a lot of pages. Because I'm sending the signatures and then all the comments as well. So there's like the individual pages, or each email is a page. Okay, there's no other way I can do that. Okay, so then all together with that and the petition site, I haven't even counted yet, but it's thousands. Right, so I'm gonna send that all off on Monday. I'll do a video of packaging all that up. And then I'm gonna ask people who are prayer warriors to pray and fast. And I don't normally announce fasting because I think that's a private, sacred thing you do with the Lord. But I think when I'm calling for a fast, I'm asking people specifically to. These people are dangerous. Like literally dangerous. When they're altering evidence like that, I'm horrified. And it's just, I want not just that they're removed from power. I specifically want any of the other cases that they have done that to be reopened. Because how many other people may have been sitting in prison, whose cries to God have been heard. Okay, let's get those cases reopened, because it's very likely if they've done this in this case, they've most likely done it in others. So let's keep this in prayer. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a blessed day.